Time having arrived, I call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order for today, September 16th. If you could just please rise and help us salute our beautiful flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, councilors, welcome again. We just had the public hearing, but now we're here for FinCom. But before we begin, I'd like to introduce a friend of this city, a mayor of the largest city in Cape Verde and also the capital of Cape Verde. Francisco Carvalho is the mayor who actually has a sister city relationship with Brockton, and especially between the fire department of Cape Verde and the fire department here in the city of Brockton. So welcome, Mayor. And the mayor couldn't be here, so he left a citation for you that Councilor Azak will read for you.
So I'd like to present this citation on behalf of the City of Brockton. So this is an official citation. Be it known that the Mayor of Brockton hereby extends his congratulations to Mayor of Praia, Francisco Carvalho, in recognition of your visit to the City of Champions. The City of Brockton cherishes our strong and enduring friendship with Praia. This partnership has fostered cultural exchange, mutual understanding, and collaborative initiatives that enrich both communities. Therefore, it gives me great pleasure to present this citation to you as a symbol of my appreciation, the Mayor, of course, and ours. This citation is duly signed by the Mayor of the City of Brockton on this day, the 16th day of September 2024. Mayor Robert F. Sullivan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilors, we'll take a quick recess if you just want to swing by and say hello to the mayor. And the meeting is back. Mr. Clerk, agenda number 1, please.
Item 1, we have the acceptance of the minutes of the August 19th, 2024 Finance Committee meeting.
That will be accepted and placed on file.
We have the acceptance of the minutes of the September 4th, 2024 Finance Committee meeting.
That, too, will be accepted and placed on file.
We have the appointment of Ms. Irene Giannopoulos of Arlington, Mass. to the role of auditor for the City of Brockton for a 3-year term. Invited, Interim City Auditor Irene Giannopoulos.
Welcome, Madam Interim Auditor, soon to be Auditor.
Something like that.
Yep.
Thank you for having me, Honorable Council. Feel like I've gone on and on and on over a long period of time as the Assistant Auditor and the Acting City Auditor, back to the Assistant Auditor, back to the Interim Auditor. It really is my honor to be appointed by Mayor Sullivan to be the official City Auditor of the City of Brockton. It truly is the highlight of my career. I joined this city in November of 2022 with the intent of being the Assistant Auditor and learning the auditing world, rather. And I got immediately thrust into, I would say, maybe a crash course into being a City Auditor of one of the greatest cities in the Commonwealth. So it really is my honor to be here right now, and thank you for your consideration of my appointment. And I welcome any questions.
Councilor Tavares.
All right, congratulations in the first place, and thank you so much. Actually, I just want to say thank you for your service. And since you start, basically, every time you come here, you do such a great presentation. And you look like very comfy when you explained it. And I'm totally appreciate it, and I'm very proud, and you get this position. Congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Madam Auditor. So I just want to begin, number one, and this is no reflection on you, ma'am, but I would just have to say I'm disappointed that the mayor is not here today. You know, he's appointing a major head of one of our financial departments, and given the circumstances our city is in, I would like to hear from the mayor as to why he's appointed you as the permanent auditor and why he believes you're the best person for the job. I think this council deserves to hear from the mayor on this, important appointment. So the fact that he's here, not here, I just have to say I'm disappointed. Secondly, I requested, we were never given your resume as part of this package. I requested it last week. And I never received it. I don't think any member of this council has received your resume. And so, to make a decision, on appointing you the permanent auditor, to not have a better understanding of what your auditing background is and your experience in auditing and any education relating to auditing, I think that just is a disservice, again, to the city council to not have all the information necessary to make a more informed decision on this appointment. And so I don't know if you're aware of that, of whether HR has your resume, but this council did not receive it prior to this meeting. So while we're on that, I believe you just briefly stated you began your auditing career back in 2022. Could you just give us, for those of us, who don't know your background, could you just explain to us, what is your auditing background and maybe any education related there too?
Sure. So I got my bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. And thereafter, I was in the private sector for quite some time, realized that it wasn't very fulfilling to me, and I decided to join the public sector. I became the project cash manager for the city of Cambridge, and I was there for 14 years in the Treasury Department there. So in terms of any auditing experience I had while in Treasury, I knew the importance of accuracy when it came to reconciling bank statements, because I actually reconciled the cities for 14 years. And with that, we had to provide for my former job, they had external auditors. We had to provide them with everything ticked and tied and perfect. So that was my auditing experience when segueing into this new role as assistant auditor here. That's my background as of now, and I think we all know that for the past 2 years I've been learning the world of auditing with the help of the DOR directly and a gentleman by the name of Mark Abrahams, who actually assisted the DOR in writing a lot of the MGLs as it relates to the city auditor's role and the processes that occur in the department. Mark does talk to me regularly, and he does help us out if we have any sort of questions of that nature. I apologize that no one has my resume or anything of that sort, but I'm perfectly welcome to, have this all over again at a later date if that makes the council feel more comfortable.
I mean, that would be the will of the council. I'm not sure. While we have you here today, I'm just going to ask you a few questions to see if, to inform my decision here. Just with you saying you're receiving some assistance from this gentleman you spoke, Mark. Sorry, I forgot his last name. Abraham. Would it be your intent to take, since you're so new to the auditing world, and maybe even new to Munis, that software, are you interested in taking any, further education classes on these issues, or, anything to help supplement, your ability to run the auditing department and your use of Munis?
I would absolutely need to take courses, because there is a certification that's required that I would need to take the courses for.
Okay.
I would hope that if appointed, I'd be able to hire an assistant auditor to help alleviate the workload in the office, so I actually have time to take these courses and be certified.
Okay, I appreciate that. Secondly, do you know if this job was posted? Was there an interview process? Were there other candidates? I wasn't sure. I never seen any posting. So, to your knowledge, was this position posted to the public, and all comers available to apply?
It was posted to the public, correct?
Okay, so I did not know that. So. I spoke earlier about the audit that was just posted last week. I was wondering, did you have an opportunity to read that audit, the NPB audit?
I've read half of it. while trying to tackle everything that's going on right now with year-end and completing the audit itself. I will say that some material was, I didn't know in depth, and this audit, this investigation was very much appreciated. There was some material that didn't surprise me, given the circumstances with what's been going on for the past 11 months now. But I did read it with the full notion that I wasn't that surprised as I went along.
Okay. And so you would say you're familiar with some of its main findings.
Right.
Okay. One of those findings was regarding that the mayor was unaware that the CFO had responsibilities under Chapter 324 for the school department budget, and that would be found on page 157. And just to make sure that, you know, that we as a city council are doing our due diligence and, you know, making sure that you're aware of what your responsibilities are under our ordinances, because you have a specific duty to the city council under our ordinance, not just to the mayor, but to the city council. And I just want to make sure we're all on the same page about what some of those duties are. So I did print up the ordinance, and I placed it on the desk in front of you, just so that, you know, that you would be familiar as well. And I'm hoping you could just give me a little leeway here, Mr. Chairman. This is an important appointment, and given our circumstances, I think it's important that, you know, we properly voir dire our auditor, just to make sure that we all understand what our responsibilities are.
Glad you asked, and continue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Section 267, under the powers and duties generally for the city auditor. The first one is basically stating that the city auditor shall carefully examine all accounts and claims which shall have been approved as provided in Section 249, and if they are just, legally contracted and duly authorized, he or she shall audit and present the same, properly filed and labeled with a complete list thereof to the Standing Committee on Accounts. And so that's, you know, essentially the duty to our Accounts Committee to, you know, to have the accounts that were provided to you under 249, properly filed and labeled, a complete list, and then presented to that standing committee. Now, I know you do serve as clerk of the Committee on Accounts, and I know that you work well with our chair on the accounts. And so, you know, I think Section A is pretty straightforward. It's really Section B that I really want to have a better understanding of. In B, it says that the city auditor shall keep in the City Hall a complete set of books containing itemized statements of the receipts and expenditures of each department and the condition of all appropriations. And in case any appropriation shall be exhausted, he or she shall give immediate notice of the fact in writing to the City Council, to the committee having charge of the appropriation, and to the Committee on Accounts. He or she shall present each month to each member of the City Council a printed report of the state of the account of each department and the condition of its appropriation. And he or she shall make such comments upon the state of the account of any department to the City Council as he or she deems necessary or proper to be made. And so I just kind of want to dig in a little bit on shall keep the complete set of books of itemized statements and receipts and expenditures of each department. Because one of the issues that our audit found is that one of the origins of the overspending was that there were no documents that tracked the school budget's expenses on a fiscal year-to-date basis relative to the approved fiscal 23 budget. And that it goes further, it says we could find no document that showed on a monthly or quarterly basis how much of that budget was actually spent during the course of the year. In other words, once a budget was passed, there was no means to assess whether the school department was adhering to or overspending that budgeted amount. And so one of your specific duties is to contain itemized statements of receipts and expenditures of each department, and that would include our school department, obviously. But then our audit is saying that there were no records of any expenditures no expenditures, that there were no documents that track the school department's expenses on a fiscal year-to-date basis. And so I'm just, the disconnect. Does the auditing department keep track of the expenses of the school department, and are those itemized, itemized in the city auditor's office?
We keep track of all of that information on Munis. The problem is we can only keep track of what's given to us. So one of the prime reasons why the deficit occurred is because people outside of the city auditor's office, people outside of the city auditor themselves had access to the general ledger. That's highly illegal. No one's allowed to touch the accounting on the books outside of this office. The school department had that ability. So once, I'm not sure at what point in time, but there was a point where there's sort of a gray area with my role and my predecessor's role. We were switching. We immediately shut off everyone's access to the general ledger on Munis. And that's when everything started to sort of unravel, and we could see what was added and what wasn't added. So I understand the concern with Part B of this role, and I do plan on making sure that no one can touch our accounting system again. I believe in a prior FinCom meeting, I had stated that things like numbers can really never be hidden. Things will be exposed, but it does get difficult when actual work isn't put on the accounting system. And I think in order to maintain sort of that beast, we have to think of alternative measures to make sure that doesn't happen. Everything is in the city auditor's office. We have records of everything. Nothing is paid without a bill. Nothing is paid without it being audited by my staff. They come to me frequently to ask me questions. If something looks kind of fishy, would you think this is an allowable expense? You know, if someone went on a travel trip and decided to have a sushi dinner, how much was a sushi dinner? $30. All right, that's fine. How much was this sushi dinner? $200. No. Things like that. I hope that answers your question. I welcome any more.
Yeah, so, I mean, essentially saying that, prior to some cutoff date on which you no longer allowed access to the ledger in Munis, that you were not given all this information by the school department about what their expenses were, essentially.
If there were any expenses outside of the accounting system and outside of, a purchase order that came to us with a bill, then no. How would I possibly know? That's where the financial integrity comes into place. That's this understanding that if you're performing a job function and you're getting paid taxpayer money to do it, you better understand that anything you do business-wise when it comes from a financial perspective has to be on the accounting system. I don't know how else I can word it, that this is not a task I can do alone. It's not a task this department can do alone. We have to make sure that financial integrity stands in all of the departments, and anyone who doesn't follow suit with that statement, we've got to think of alternative methods to preserve the solvency of the city in that case.
Do you currently believe that the school department is now cooperating and turning over all expenses that should be turned over?
I think they're cooperating. I think they're also very grossly understaffed. I'm still very worried with the fact that it's been quite some time where I stated that, and again, this is my professional opinion with another colleague who's my counterpart, let's say, at the school. I've expressed strongly also to open architects and to anyone that'll listen that the school central department needs to be more robust. It needs to be built up. It needs to be able to have a grasp of this massive, massive department that's bigger than the rest of the city departments combined. That still hasn't happened. I just went into a meeting there the other day, and it's empty. It's a ghost town. I can't say enough how important it is to have counterparts like myself and my staff working over at the school department to make sure that everything's being run properly, in regards to, not just Chapter 70, but also the laws that, require the type of work and how we do our work in my office and in the procurement officer's office and so forth. So I think everyone's really trying. I think we need to understand, again, the importance of, seriously understand the importance of these financial positions in the city and that these vacancies can't occur much longer.
Well, I'm glad you're honest about that, and it's something that both our superintendent and our mayor need to really focus on and build out these departments, because things can easily slip through the cracks as they have been doing over the past 2 years. So I appreciate the honesty there. Regarding one of your responsibilities, the chart of accounts. And that's basically the list of all financial accounts, and what that does is it helps organize and track financial transactions, and it's really a fundamental tool for financial reporting and budgeting. And so I just kind of want to talk about the audit trail. And so when I think it would be best if anybody who has any concern about any expense can go into Munis and see a clear audit trail of why, what that expense was, and how much was spent on it. And so basically the scanning and attaching into Munis all invoices and contracts, quotes, requisitions, and a clear history of all those expenses. What would you say to that, and about the necessity of having a clear audit trail, in Munis when it comes to all of these expenditures?
It's very necessary. We have to have an audit trail. Anyone who has viewing access to Munis can see their purchase orders. They can see the bills attached to them. I'm not quite sure if you can see cross departments. I don't believe you can, but I can look into it. An audit trail is paramount because, again, my office is audited by an external auditor. So they're watching every single thing we do. And when it comes to the chart of accounts and making sure everything's set up properly, per UMAS, per the Uniform Massachusetts Accounting System, the DOR's all over us to make sure that we're booking everything right. So there's a lot of checks and balances in place. It's a matter of anyone with any kind of financial role in this city understanding that they must have financial integrity. This cannot be questioned any longer. And if there's any kind of instinct from their manager's perspective that things aren't actually, rather are happening, and they're not on the accounting system, that's a serious problem, and decisions need to be made. Yeah.
Okay, so you can agree that having a robust audit trail is necessary for proper budgeting purposes, and to have a better understanding of where, what we're spending and why we're spending it, and, and how we got, basically how we got to the conclusion of spending on that specific item. So what about the timeliness of those journal entries? What would you say to that? Do you believe that they're being, that you have the ability to timely enter these expenditures? Or, I know you have a short staff, so are we getting behind on timely entering all of these expenditures into Munis?
I don't think so. I mean, give or take a week or two.
Okay. All right. And then lastly, I know this is something that we've talked about as a city council, and I know the CFO has kind of made a determination to end encumbrances or blanket POs. Just kind of talking to people, they feel like that potentially that may not have been such a good decision, because at this point, the blanket PO allows for a top line number, and then, for a line item, so what it's budgeted for, and then, any invoice or PO can be, drawn down from that blanket PO under that line item, and that way we kind of know, what we're spending within that budgeted line. Right now, it seems that we're just getting in invoices and paying them without maybe an understanding of, what the line item is budgeted for. It's more of a bottom-up type of process than a top-down, budgeting process. Would you, what do you think about bringing back encumbrances or open POs to maybe better manage our budget and have an understanding of what the top line number is and then draw down from there instead of just paying invoices as they come in and not really having a clear understanding of what the budget is for that service?
Everyone should have a clear understanding of what their budget is and their line item, regardless of whether they open a blanket PO or not. That's the crux of the issue in this city. This should already be known ahead of time. You've got your new budget, new fiscal year. This is how much money I have in this line item. It's the department's responsibility to know what expenses I already have ahead of time to hit that line item. The problem with the blanket POs historically in this city is that when you open a blanket PO for, let's say, $100,000, it eats away at that budget automatically on the system. Draws down from the budget amount. When I came on this past summer, we were trying to close the books in August. POs hadn't been shut since as far back as 2010. There were millions and millions of dollars sitting on the system that no one knew about because the employees who opened the POs forgot about them. Managers didn't bother looking to see if they had money just floating around in the ether of the accounting world. It was shocking. I don't think everyone really understood what they were doing when they were opening blanket POs. So we, of course, shut all of those, freed up all this extra cash that no one even knew they had, which they should have known they had, because if it's your department and your budget, you should be paying attention to this. Thereafter, until we felt we had our bearings more, to go back to the blanket PO concept, I still need to feel more confident that fiscal managers all over the city are actually paying attention to their budget and not just opening a PO for the sake of it's easier for me to make payments this way. Another issue we had with the blanket POs, and I know it sounds primitive to open a PO for every invoice. I understand that concept. The secondary problem is that, and I'm having this problem right now with Munis and speaking to Munis about it, we have no way of avoiding duplicate invoice payments when we draw down against a blanket PO. And we've gotten a lot of instances where we get duplicate payments from departments, probably for the same reason why they opened purchase orders 10, 14 years ago and didn't know that they opened them and didn't bother closing them or asking to close them. We constantly get duplicate payments from one department paying a bill for Joe Schmo for $20, and then 3 months later, another department's paying the exact same invoice, the exact same bill, and then we have to foot up the time and the effort to deal with the vendor because we overpaid and get the money back. It's too much of a spider web for us to, rather for me to allow blanket POs at the moment. Once I feel more confident that managers are training their staff and organizing their bills in such a way where duplicate payments can't happen, of course I'd be willing to start blanket POs.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Yeah, in the way that it's not a forever order that, encumbrances or blanket POs will now, never be allowed. The fact that you're saying that, you want your people trained up to make sure that those, duplicative invoices are not occurring, but that ultimately having blanket POs or open POs or encumbrances is not bad fiscal management. It's understanding, having better training on how to operate within those encumbrances or open POs. That's required. So.
Right. It's not bad fiscal management. It only is if it's not being managed fiscally.
Well, I appreciate that, and hopefully we can get to that place relatively soon. So I don't really have any further questions, only that, our ordinance does require, there being reports presented to the city council on the expenditures, and if any line item goes beyond its budget, that we are to be informed of that happening. And so I just think for us to do our job and provide the proper oversight for our budget, we got to make sure that all of our department heads are doing their job and informing us monthly of where we are, and if anything is going beyond what it should, that we're alerted so that we can take some action. Great. Thank you, Madam Auditor. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Minichiello.
Good evening. A lot of what I was going to ask Councilor Thompson with regard to your background asked the question. I have a couple of follow-up items that Councilor Thompson mentioned with regard to Munis and the overall budget. Part of the report noted that the budget that the school committee voted upon was not the budget that was inputted into Munis, that they were two different sets of books, numbers, what have you. So what is your understanding of that situation that took place currently?
Of that situation that occurred?
Yeah, right now, is Munis aligned with the school committee budget?
It is. It wasn't back then. It is up to the school CFO staff to enter their own budget. It's just beats into the point I made earlier, how important it is to fill these vacancies and make sure you have adequate people in these roles that, are trustworthy. It has been tied out, everything's fine at this point, but again, we have to remember that there's the responsibility of this role with the DOR and the external auditors looking over everything that we do. And this role will protect the fiduciary interests of the city, but it would be so much more beneficial to the city as a whole if everyone shared the same thought process, and that financial integrity is there, and that these departments are held responsible for their actions in the end. It's really the only way I can say it. That I don't know the how or the why, other than it happened. They had access to the accounts. They updated their budget. It didn't match. Wasn't checked on this end. That's really all I can say to it.
So right now, who has access to Munis?
Who?
Right. Before, department heads had access to Munis, correct?
Yes.
And they were able to manipulate it and basically, again, take it out of alignment with the school committee budget.
That's because they had access to the general ledger. They could create accounts. They could create this slush funds, this 1999 fund. That no longer exists. But when it comes to just overall access to Munis, anyone with any kind of financial role within their job description has access to Munis. We can't override purchase orders anymore. We can't override statutory categories anymore. I hope that answers your question.
So, again, another criticism in the report was that there was no detail in terms of what the budget centers were being used for. And is that being done now? Basically, is it broken down enough so that you or someone can keep track of what was allotted for spending in the budget, and so that on a monthly basis we can track and the auditor can show whether you're on track, whether you're in the red, or whether there's going to be an anticipated shortfall at the end of the year based on the rate of spending? Because I guess my point is that this is a very important role. And I know in terms of working with you that you are aware of that. So I guess I'm going into the weeds, which I shouldn't be. So I think I'm gonna stop right there, because this is about the position of auditor. It's not about a report with regard to the schools. But I'm just taking some examples to try to get an understanding on the state of affairs and your view of the state of affairs, in this position that we have to vote on. I guess what we all need to feel comfortable with is when we were receiving testimony about how this all happened, in terms of how did these payments go out, how come people were, if there was overspending, why weren't some of the bills not getting paid? Because if there's X amount of dollars in the budget and there's overspending, there's not enough money to pay.
Right.
Well, what basically we found out was that as the bills came in, there was no tracking. Money is coming into the city for different things at different times, and no one's tracking, saying, wait a minute, this bill goes with fiscal 23. This money's coming in for fiscal 24. You can't be paying the fiscal 23 bill with that revenue stream or with that grant money that's coming in or what have you. There was no alignment with the bills as they were coming. They were just getting paid. No one was questioning the payment of these bills, because I was stunned that, wait a minute, why aren't there checks bouncing all over the place? Because there's only so much money in the budget. There's in someone's home checkbook, if there's only so much money in the budget, how can you spend, unless you're racking it up on a credit card, naturally. But I guess I just want to make sure that you're aware of as Councilor Thompson pointed out, the responsibility, especially in light of the circumstances that have just, been reported in the reports, and that you're up for the task.
I think I am. One of the hardest parts of this position, even when I was acting city auditor, was explaining things like what's acceptable when it comes to overlapping fiscal years with paying bills, depending on the type of funds you're actually spending. Absolutely cannot overlap fiscal years when you're paying out of the general fund or enterprise funds. No one seemed to know that. So it's something that we've been educating everyone in my department so they're aware. All the types of bills, you can overlap fiscal years. I'm sorry, all the types of revenue sources, rather expenditure sources, really, if you think about it. Grant funds, trust funds, what's the other one, capital. You can, as long as we've got grant agreements, as long as contracts are signed. Additionally, in the past, people were able to create requisitions which turned into purchase orders, and they had a budget override ability, which allowed them to overspend their categories freely, and no one was tracking it.
Right.
That's been shut off. If you open a requisition now and there's not enough money in the budget, even if it's one of these funds that you can overspend on technically, like grant funds, the system still will shut it down. We'll get a big bubble that says no budget allowed, no budget, not an adequate budget. There's not enough money. We look and see what kind of fund it is, if it's allowable to override. If it's not, it's general fund or enterprise fund, we kick it right back to the department. You don't have the money to pay for this. That's what should have always been happening.
Correct. But the bills kept getting paid.
Because there wasn't that
Exactly.
stoppage.
Exactly.
And, not to diminish the importance of this role and the vast responsibility of this role, but I would really like the taxpayers also to put this into perspective. We get hundreds, if not thousands of bills a week, a month. There's only so much we can do in terms of controls on the system. We really, really need to start looking deep down inside of making sure that managers are monitoring their fiscal employees, making sure that they are aware of their budget strings and how much money they have in that budget. And if it's a situation where we don't know how to get that on munis, well, then you got to reach out to the city auditor's office. You got to say something. At this point, I'm not aware of anyone not knowing how to pull something off the system or see their balance because we have such a robust finance department that helps everyone and shows them, what their codes are. But it's really up to the responsibility of the department to know how much money they have to spend and to make sure that their expenses are already accounted for before we even begin the fiscal year and that they've got everything budgeted. I really do believe, not to put a damper on the day here, but I really do believe everyone really is. People are really paying attention. They're asking a lot more questions. If anything, it's sad to say, but people are still kind of a little nervous, when it comes to sending us stuff, and they're looking at things with extra detail. But if anything, we all prefer that, right? We want people to scrutinize everything up the wazoo now. I think I am aware of the severity.
In a short amount of time, it sounds like you've had a huge education, obviously, in how the system operates. So keep up the good work and make sure that when you see something that doesn't look right, you certainly notify the council. Because we have to, for the sake of the taxpayer and this city, we have to make sure that the financial well-being, is continued, because this city can't afford to continue the way it's going. Our reserves have been depleted, and we just cannot incur another hit like we've had. So your role, in whatever happens tonight, is very important, and we will be relying on the position of auditor, and I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. We have Councilor Nicastro, Renencourt, Fowell, and Azak. So,
Thank you.
Councilor Nicastro.
Good evening, Irene. I'm happy to see you. Irene, for 4 of my 7 years on the council, I served on the Accounts Committee. And it was always a challenge preparing because the entries of accounts payable for the schools were always different. And I'm hoping that everything in the end, with your efforts, will become consistent with the entries for the rest of the city departments. But I'm thinking that this is such an important issue, as reflected by the comments of my colleagues. Maybe we should have you back on a resolve to talk about schools-related auditing, and I'd be happy to sponsor that. Okay, so you'll be coming back soon enough. My one question for you right now is, you're being appointed for a 3-year term. What's your goal for your first year? I'm sure you have many.
My goal for the first year is to finish the audit, to fill some very crucial vacant positions I have right now, which is the assistant auditor for the school department and the assistant auditor on the city side, to help ease the load that we're carrying. We still have a lot of work to rebuild the financial integrity of the city and its processes, and that all starts, I wouldn't say it all starts in my office. I think it starts with us all. Anyone who's representing the city publicly, we all need to work together to make sure that we understand the importance of not just financial integrity, but professional integrity. That would be my goal for the first year. For the years thereafter, I would really want to pin down processes and stick them on the city auditor's website, policies, and say, this is it. There's no more questions as to what's an allowable expense and what's not. Here's what, I've sent memos out, we've done trainings, but just to sort of solidify everything, and maybe with the council's help, we can make it more solid in another sense. So there's really no question anymore as to what's expected from anyone submitting payments to the city auditor's office. I would hope to get done by the 3rd year. I hope to be able to close the books closer to June 30th as required by MGL. That's very, very difficult. We would need to get back in line with our schedule for the audit and not be a year behind. And I want to continue to empower the staff in my office and let them know that there is a benefit to doing this work. We are safeguarding a city, we are protecting kids, we're protecting taxpayers at the end of the day, because we're providing these services that taxpayer funds are paying for, and, you know, we've got the good people out in the world doing the real work, you know, present company included, but it means nothing, in my professional opinion, it means nothing in the end if the foundation underneath it isn't solid, and that foundation is built on finance and business. So I would try to get to that goal and empower my staff, which I believe I already have, to think this way, and that we really are serving a purpose here, and it's not just to pay bills and to push a payroll through. So that would be my intent.
Thank you. And I just want to mention, my colleague mentioned you're not here being supported by the mayor tonight, and I hope you don't take that to heart, because I see that our agenda, which is prepared by the council and by the chairman of this finance committee, does not invite the mayor to come here tonight. He's usually very good about joining us when he's invited. And you're such a strong candidate, Irene, from everything that I've seen and from working with you. I think you're handling it very well on your own.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Derencourt.
Thank you. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening, I'm fine, thank you.
Excellent. Let's go straight to it. What is the educational background in the auditor's office?
My educational background?
No, the whole office.
Most of the positions in my office are admin twos. There are 2 admin threes or 3 admin threes. The requirement per CBAs are that the admin twos have associate degrees or equal tradesmen. I'm not really sure what that means. The admin threes need to have bachelor's degrees to handle these roles.
Mm-hmm. So that would be the base. So as we speak, do we have anyone with a CPA in the auditor's office, including you?
A CPA, no.
So do you have a CPA?
I do not.
And let me just go straight to this. Given the level of, obviously by, if I may, audit or financial review, which I'll be asking later, that level of incompetence that we have based on what has been going on. And I think it's very detrimental, even as we speak, right, to have an audit department whereby no one, well, for people who are watching this who may not know what a CPA is a certified public accountant. Mm-hmm. The city of Brockton in the auditor's office does not have someone like that. So for me, I think it's troublesome, and especially with the level of information and if not numbers that we are dealing with. And it is unfortunate because I do not have your resume unless somebody else have it. And I think, for your position, especially as an appointment for 3 years, it should have been an obligation that all of us have access to that. And if we don't have access to it, no one else out there has. And given the fact that you as a public employee, I'm not blaming you for it because obviously I wouldn't email you personally requesting that, but I would leave it there. Another question, do you have a list of internal control that exists over financial activities and reporting?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Of course, I'll be very slow. You can bet on that one. Do you have a list of internal control that exists over financial activities and reporting?
A list of internal controls?
Yes, ma'am.
I believe those lists do exist in the budget book, and we do adhere to it.
Do you have access to that?
I do.
Can you email this to the council?
Yes.
Excellent. So what prior audit experience do you have before this?
The prior audit experience I have is with the City of Cambridge as a project cash manager there. I was in public sector there for 14 years, did all of the bank reconciliations for 58 accounts, had to provide those recons to our external auditors, had to ensure that any kind of, it's funny, I was kind of in the opposite position there, where I provided the city auditor there with bill payments for my departments and for 5 other divisions that I oversaw. I have that experience on the ground level when it comes to auditing.
So as the auditor, right, do you think it would be in the interest of your office to have somebody with a CPA?
Not necessarily.
What do you mean by that?
So we have an accountant in the office who has 20 years of accounting experience, but he doesn't have a CPA. The difference between the private sector and the public sector is that the public sector's accounting functions are completely different from the private sector. So a CPA position would be beneficial, of course, but it wouldn't completely align with UMAS, the Uniform Massachusetts Accounting System. It's 2 different types of accounting. There's a separate type of accounting on UMAS that needs to be learned through the certification process I had brought up earlier, which functions a little bit differently than the private sector.
So let me just say this to you. I mean, this is a perfect segment into this. For my view, right, based on what I understand, the difference between a private auditor and a public auditor is that there's more accountability. So whereby you have a solemn obligation not just to report, but to making sure that whatever you are reporting is effective and accurate.
Right.
Where as a public employee, there's a lot of room for discrepancy. That's my view, because I strongly believe if what's going on right now in the city of Brockton was going on in a private setting, a lot of people would have been gone by now. That's
Right.
a must. With the level of incompetence, the deficit, I mean, you and I know that would be unacceptable. But
Right.
by virtue of dealing with, a public entity, the lack of responsibility, if not organization, is completely different. So my view is that we are a city with a budget of more than $500 million. And at the end of the day, we have to making sure that whomever has access to that not only know what he or she is doing, but being able to answer questions effectively and at any given time, because we are dealing with taxpayer money. The level of accountability here, it's beyond my capacity to understand. And even after this, what has been going on and what is going on, I feel like nobody want to take responsibility. And of course, in your position, given the fact that hopefully you get this job, you're going to have to answer a lot of questions tonight. And of course, the council from Ward 5 stated that us as city council, you have an obligation to give us information. And some people may not think that, but you do. Let me go to my next question. Has the internal auditor department, does the internal auditor department have a flow diagram that illustrates the process risk and control that exists over financial report for the city and school department?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I will.
A flow chart of?
Nope, I will go slow again, I promise. Does the internal auditor department have a flow diagram that illustrates the process risk and control that exists over financial reporting for the city and school departments?
In terms of a flow chart,
You are the auditor, you tell me.
No, I could create a flow chart. I'm still not really understanding the concept of this. So it would be a flow chart showing how information gets entered onto Munis, for what purpose, what the flow is to which department thereafter, and so forth, and then
Yes,
how
ma'am,
it
that's
comes
exactly
out
what I'm
into the
asking you.
GL?
Yes, that's exactly
Okay.
what I'm asking you. Do we have that?
I don't think so.
Okay, can you create that?
I could, yeah.
Okay, so, and if you do, how long do you think it's going to take?
I would need to know more detail as to exactly what you wanted.
Well, I mean, you are, well, I'm not the
So
auditor here.
it would be, if we're talking literal, every entry we do and why we're doing it and putting it on paper, I'd probably need to get some help, but it would probably take a couple of months. We're balancing closing the books. We're balancing trying to complete an old audit. As soon as we're done with the old audit, we have to do our new audit. It's not something that can't be done. I would just have more questions as to what exactly you want. I don't want to add too much, or I could just put everything.
Yeah. Because it's like, the reason I'm asking you this question is that, you know, as I'm sitting up here and observing, if not witnessing, you know, what we just call audit or financial review that just came out, I feel like there's no one to be blamed. Nobody. And in my view, in which I believe I will ask, the city solicitor a lot of questions tonight. If we are dealing with that $18.5 million deficit, someone should take accountability, at least. And I would be ashamed of myself if I just sitting here after all of this has been going on and pretending that everything is normal. So I'm asking you this question in the interest of the people, and I talk to people out there, and some of these questions that I'm asking you come from some of these people. Given the fact that, I'm not an auditor, obviously. I mean, I don't have that knowledge, but, part of my job is to listen to our constituent and ask the question that they may not be able to ask you directly. So let me go to the next one. Does the city auditor or the external auditor provide a documented opinion on how effective internal control are to prevent financial reporting risk and to prevent fraud? If so, can you provide this documented opinion, as this does not exist in the external audit report?
It does exist. They're called recommendations.
Okay, so can we have access to that? When was the last time you recommend something like this?
The external auditor makes recommendations after they've done their audit. It's usually towards the end of the financial statement. The last completed financial statement was in FY22.
Okay.
So when we're closely done with FY23 coming up, they'll be making recommendations on what they see in terms of internal controls and what's lacking. It's called a finding, when they see something that needs to be fixed.
So when do you think that might be ready?
Before the end of the calendar year.
So before the end of the calendar, so we don't have a date, it's just a possibility?
We don't. No, it's not a possibility. We have to get the audit done because we have to please our creditors for our bond rating.
Okay.
So we're trying really hard to get that accomplished.
Okay, so how long has Clifford Lawson Allen been the external auditor for the city of Brockton?
I don't know exactly. I want to say as far back as 2020, maybe.
So you don't know, you're just guessing this?
Right.
Can you find out for me at least? And if yes, you can send an email to all, well, you can send it to the clerk, and the clerk will send it to us. I'll ask you that last question and I'll leave it there. Who is responsible for reviewing system access review and budget approval level in Munis on a daily basis as we speak?
Myself and the IT department, the city IT department, we oversee the access to Munis, and no one gets access to it without it being approved by myself and then checked with the IT director and his staff.
So prior to that mess that has been going on, who has access to that? Everyone? You don't know?
Not exactly, no, I don't know.
So you cannot comment on that one?
No, I don't want to say everyone had access to everything. I do know everyone had the ability to override a requisition and override a budget.
So when did you guys, probably your office, when did you guys make the decision to stop, if not prevent, other people who's not supposed to have access to that from having access to that? When was that?
That was around the time we found out about the deficit.
What is the time for it?
That was September of '23.
I mean, according to this, the deficit has been going on since April, based on that report that just came out.
Counselor, I found out about the deficit in September.
Okay.
I wasn't privy to all of the information, and I wasn't city auditor at the time.
I understand. Okay. And then from then, the only people that have access to that is you and the CFO.
The access to give approval for people
Yes.
to get on the system, but the
Yes, ma'am.
actual secure functions themselves exist in the IT department, city IT.
Yeah. So that's a different entity. I understand that part.
Yes.
Okay. So, well, I'm assuming there are other people that have questions. I don't want to take all the time. I do have a lot of more questions. And with that being said, I'll leave it there. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Farwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to say to my good friend and my colleague to the right that the questions you just asked were shopped around by someone who wanted us to ask them, and
I did acknowledge that.
yes, you did, and I will just tell you that someday that person is going to take you down a rabbit hole from which you will not escape.
It's okay.
But having said that, let me go into a few questions, because the topic has been raised by Councilor Thompson and by you. Are you comfortable talking a little bit about the issue that you and I discussed today about FY23 and sick time and holiday pay and the school department?
Sure.
Would you explain what you're working on now? Because I want people to know the level of detail. I want them to know your competence, and I want you to know the dedication you have to examining issues that are so important to the city in terms of auditing and preserving finances. So just for the group, just a brief explanation, if you would.
So part of the FY23 audit exposes any kind of total balances that exist in the system for a department. And what we're supposed to do, one of the requests is to provide a total balance for any sick or vacation time that carries over fiscal years requested by departments. It's typically high, rather, because we've got CBAs and people are allowed to carry over time, so on and so forth. But it still needs to be monitored by department heads, by managers, and making sure that their staff are being honest and that what they're carrying over they have in all truthfulness, and that the time that gets reported to us to save and put on the system signed by the department heads is true and accurate. This is where the financial integrity comes into play, and the notion that we really need this honesty to occur. Time isn't being tracked in the school department in a normal way. FY23 has a liability balance that is not accurate on the accounting system. Again, I'll repeat, it's not accurate on the accounting system per the school CBAs. So right now, their outstanding balance for a liability for sick and vacation time accrued in FY23 is $53 million. And that's because no one's tracking employee records on Munis over that department. Payroll department doesn't speak to the HR department, who doesn't speak to the finance department. And any time I bring up anything in terms of what are we going to do to fix this gross, erroneous accounting entry on the system, all I hear and see is this. That's what they do. So at some point, I have to say, well, someone needs to be held responsible for this. So what do I do in my role right now? It's clearly wrong. It clearly can't be used because it's inaccurate. So I escalate it to our external auditors. We have a powwow. We figure out what the actual rates are for these employees, and we calculate it on our own. At some point, that entry, if you will, we're going to build an import on Excel. It'll have to get shoved into Munis for FY24. It can't for FY23 because the books are closed. But these are the kinds of things that this role, I can beat it into everyone's head a million times. I'm not said department. I'm not there. I'm not all of these people who are supposed to be responsible for tracking these employee records and making sure sick time is correct, vacation time is correct, what's allowable, not allowable per their CBA. It's just not possible. What we're doing on the side with our external auditors isn't bad or illegal. It's valid. We're recrunching the numbers because we can't rely on the accounting system, because we can't rely on the individuals in these roles to import the information correctly. There has to come a point where I can draw down a report off of Munis and not get terrified with a figure that's clearly not correct and accurate. So that's what's happening right now with sick and accrual time.
And the reason I brought this up, colleagues, is it is, you would think after all that happened in FY23 with the deficit and with all of the discussions we've had, that everyone would be paying such close attention to detail. Everyone would be pulling in the same direction. Everyone would be cooperating to maintain the records that are so essential to auditing and accounting for the revenue that comes in from our residents, and it's not happening. And I am just beyond irritated about it, but it brings up the issue that I think we need to face. And that is, you could have, and by the way, let me digress for a minute. We use outside CPA, so it isn't as though we do not have access to those services. Do we not, when it's needed, use a CPA?
We could.
We could.
We had one that was in the office.
Right.
that contract expired and we didn't renew it. We have adequate help
Yeah.
when it comes to accounting functions, per UMIS, not necessarily accounting, typical accounting in the private sector. Again, it's similar, but it's dissimilar.
Okay. So now I'll go back to my original thought. Chapter 324 has a number of different requirements. I disagree with Councilor Derenoncourt. If you read that report, people have taken accountability. The mayor has taken accountability. The mayor is the one that asked for the report. And there are very few politicians in this state who would call in an investigation and an audit by an outside law firm, knowing that he is chair of, or she is chair of the school committee, and knowing that whatever failures there are going to be exposed. So say anything you want about people not taking accountability. To me, that's taking huge accountability. Basically saying, okay, tell me everything I've done wrong, and I pledge to make it transparent, and I pledge to release it to the public. The CFO has taken responsibility. The problem we have is that we are one community. We are the city of Brockton. We need one auditing department. We don't need an auditing department here at City Hall and one at 43 Crescent Street. We need one person, the auditor, to be able to have consistent training for all personnel, consistent policies and hiring of personnel, consistent in-service training as the laws and regulations change, and a consistent supervision over the quality of work that's being done, because the data that's input, if it's not put in properly or it's not even entered, then that leaves the whole auditing function compromised. And so if you'll notice in the report that was issued by Nystrom Beckman, they indicated merge administrative functions. And one of the administrative functions is auditing. So if we're serious about it, we're going to have one auditing department for the city of Brockton, not one for all other city departments, and then a separate one for the school department. And I think I know what your answer is, but I'm going to ask you anyway. If we had that consistent level of training and supervision over data entry and constant examination of the data that's in there, and the purchase orders that are coming in, and the level of detail is adequate to justify the expenditure, would we not be far above the level of competence and expertise that we have now?
We would. It's something that we need to share. It's not, again, this goes into what I was saying earlier about financial integrity with all the managers. You know, if there's one role here that filters down to everybody else, we have to depend on everybody else underneath to go down that pyramid and make sure that they have the same standards and that they're overseeing all of these employees and that everybody's being held responsible if something goes wrong.
And one of the problems is that you don't supervise school personnel.
No.
You might need a critical piece of information, a body of information, to carry out your work as the auditor for the city of Brockton. But if somebody at the school department doesn't want to cooperate, for example, now we have people that just don't want to track sick and vacation time that's utilized, there's really nothing you can do about it because they're not your employees. Am I?
That's true, yes.
So they're kind of, they can just say, well, thank you, Madam Auditor, but I work for the superintendent of schools, or I work for some manager in the auditing department at the school department, and I really don't have to respond to you. And I just think that does not create a cohesive approach to the accounting that we need in this city. So, again, thinking about the audit, what happened in FY23, I'm going to tell you the level of detail that this young lady goes into, because I received a tip from one of my many people that let me know what's going on in the city. And this is a purchase order from May 20th, 2024. May 20th, 2024. Again, it's from the school department, a department that I thought would have been quite sensitive to expenditures. And this is a purchase order for $3,781.60. It's for a retirement party. magnanimously, the school department decided that they would throw a retirement party for people who are leaving the school system, apparently as of June 30th. So they went out and they had cheese and vegetable trays, a buffet, 60 of them at $47 each, room rental, 18% gratuity to the waitstaff, $561.60, total $3,781.60, which they expected our residents to pay for. Just imagine if every department did that. Just imagine if they said, you know what, we're going to throw a hell of a retirement party, and by the way, the residents are going to pay for it. That would have been paid were it not for this auditor, because when I inquired, I was immediately given the level of detail I needed to make sure that the taxpayers did not have to assume this burden, if you will. So I support Irene, I support her work, I support her staff. There needs to be an additional staff review, if you will. We need to consolidate auditing under one city auditor. We have to have consistent hiring practices. We have to have consistent qualifications for those who work in auditing. Currently, under the CBA, you can bid from one department to another. I understand you could be an admin 2 in one department and bid for admin 3 in your department, and if they had barely minimum qualifications, they could do that. That's something that might have to be handled through collective bargaining, but either we take auditing seriously or we don't. And if we don't, we do it at our own peril. So I support you. I will help you in any way I can. I do appreciate the dialogue with my colleagues tonight, but it really begs the question, are we going to do the right thing? And the right thing is to have one auditing department, a strong auditor, and let's get the city back on track as to where I know we should be and we can be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Azak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Ms. Giannopoulos.
Good evening.
First of all, I support your appointment as our auditor, and I'm going to say why. Anybody else would have run after the year that you just experienced. So this past year, I can only imagine how much experience you've gained in 1 year. I think you would have, somewhere else, it would have taken years to learn what you must have learned. So I thank you for sticking it out, staying here and wanting to be our auditor. So I support that. I just have a couple of questions, but before I say the couple of questions, I want to tell my colleagues that in the past 12 years, I served, about 7 years ago, I served as the chair of the Accounts Committee twice. And one of the biggest things, I think at the time it was Mel Chu who was our auditor, and I screamed and talked to whoever would listen to me that we needed to have a joint committee, accounts committee between the city and the school side. And all I would hear was, oh, it's a conspiracy, because my sister serves on the school committee, and she wasn't the chair, but she served on the accounts committee. Every time we asked for a warrant question from Mel, she'd say, oh, that's a school side. She couldn't explain what the warrant was. So that's why I said, well, why don't we bring in the school committee? Let's have a joint committee together. And some of my colleagues, not many, because many have moved on, but there is a few. Councilor Lally is one of them that was with me on the committee, and that joint committee never happened because for some reason they didn't want us to have it, because we would have answers to our questions if we had somebody from the school side meet with us. So I'm very disappointed, because I think if that ever happened, if we did have a joint accounts committee of the city council and the school committee, we would have been able to maybe accomplish what the accounts committee was really created to do. So I'm very disappointed in that, and that's the first thing that came to my mind when I heard about the deficit and the things that are happening on the school side. So maybe that's something that the accounts committee should try to do at some point, bring the two together. I don't know why people are constantly separating us. The schools and the city, we're one city. This is our school department, and we're not two separate entities, and it shouldn't be two separate entities. But anyway, tonight it's about your appointment, and once again, I stated that I support that, but something did come up this evening that you mentioned a few times, that's Munis. And I'm sure you're aware that there were questions when the investigation came out, that there's a person by the name of Pam Wood. Who is Pam Wood, and why is she making $1,000 a day living in Florida? Or maybe, does she come into City Hall? Is she part of your department? Is she part of IT? Does she work for the school department? So if you can briefly, and I don't want this to be about her, because I would like to have her at some point maybe come in, or somebody who can answer for her to come in, but I know these are questions that the community has asked, and if you could just explain a little bit about who this person is.
Sure. So Pam Wood is one of my vendors.
Okay.
She's not an employee of the city. She's a Munis consultant who services the school department, my department, the IT department, the HR department, the treasury department, every department you can think of, because Munis is a very cumbersome, highly technical, highly difficult system to use. The reason why I was so nervous when I found out that people outside of the city auditor's office had access to touch the general ledger is because I know Munis, and if one person hits one thing wrong on this system, it will crash. That's how temperamental it is. The software itself is called Munis, but it's a subdivision, you will, of Tyler Technologies. This is a national company that provides accounting systems to the entire country. When something goes wrong on the system with a report, this does happen with software frequently, it takes days to get someone to get back to us at Munis, a lot of the times to help us with our problem. We don't have that time. So there are consultants out there in the world, Pam being one of them, who are former Munis employees who, for whatever reason, decided to create their own company to help cities and towns like us for this specific reason. Something's broken, what's happening? I hit this button, I hit that box. It's spouting everything out wrong. What did we do wrong? Rather than pick up the phone and open a ticket with Tyler, it's so much easier to have a consultant with us that can help us figure out what happened with the system so we can get the information we need a lot more quickly. Pam's been with the city for, I believe, 14 years, assisting all of the city departments with the system. And I would say that if it weren't for her, she was also one of the integral consultants that we had in my office that helped us when the crash occurred, because the accounting was so funky. There's been a lot of turnover in the office. A lot of stuff wasn't documented on procedures and how to actually process stuff, and it takes time to learn. She puts procedures together for us because she knows the system well, and she helps, and she gets paid for it. So until, I can't speak for the other departments, but I can speak for my own. Until I can get people in the office and in these positions for a long enough period of time to train them up on actually doing this work. Luckily, I have someone who knows the system well and can show everyone while I'm dealing with everything else.
Okay, thank you. So she's been with the city for 14 years?
I believe she's been consulting with the city that long, but we're not her only client.
Okay. And then, so she's with your department, and she works for, she helps the other departments, or she works for each of these departments individually? Like, she consults for yours, and then, so is she in your budget? Is she in IT's? Whose budget is she in?
She's in the consultant line, I think, out of the CFO. Is it the CFO's budget? I believe. But
So
her
she's-
contract goes through IT.
Okay. So
Because she touches, well, she doesn't have access to actually change anything on Munis. She has the ability to pull stuff off to help everybody.
So I served on the IT board as well, so I know there was times we were looking for an IT specialist for Munis, but I didn't realize the pay rate and how much they were going to get paid. So is she a resident in Brockton, or is she a,
No, she's not a
or she
resident.
does she come into City Hall on a regular basis?
She does. She'll fly in.
Oh, so she
Her
flies in.
permanent residence, I believe, is in Florida.
Okay, that's what's being said out there, okay.
Yeah.
So from your experience, does she merit the $1,000 a day for her? Is that what she's getting paid? I mean, I have no idea. So-
She does, but I'm not a fan of having to pay a consultant to help us with this work, The problem is the turnover that constantly occurs in these departments and in these financial positions.
Okay.
And we don't have the time to hire people to figure out how to do things, which could take weeks sometimes. If it's that complex, knowing someone who knows the system in and out is really helpful because it speeds up the process.
I understand that, it's no problem. And once again, I don't want this to be about this person or this position. I just wanted to know how to go about to get the information out to the public, so we can figure that out. So thank you again. Once again, I think, I thank you for wanting to be our auditor and sticking it through, and I watched the accounts meetings, you've been doing the job, so I think you more than well deserve to be our auditor. So with that, I support that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Tavares.
Actually, once again, I just want to close everything else. As far as you see, everybody's so concerned about the past, whatever happened. Because literally, it's looking badly on all of us about the overspending without detailed definition on what. Everybody's overspending, but on what? Like my colleague Michelle just said, overspending, a lot of bills has not been paid. Then this is a lot of question mark. Second thing, I know you was into this situation. You've been this pain feeling, seeing it, and you've been work with us for a little while. Every time when you come here, you're so calm, literally explaining with all the details, with all the patience, and try to understand and ask the question back. And that make me literally, like I said, so more than qualified. And second, right now, to be honest with you, I'm totally understand why Mr. May is not here, because actually it's about you. It doesn't have nothing to do with him, because basically he kind of like, here you go do your things. I see it like, literally, everybody see you more than qualified to do this job on your own. You don't need like actually Mayor here on your side to kind of answer for you, because in the day, you're the one who's going to be doing this job, and then we see your competency doing this job based on all the question you've been answered calmly and very clear. I'm so proud. And then I am just going to give you a little, based on my advice, weekly meeting is going to help with your employees, just to try to understand your employees, because I've been city employees. Let me tell you what happened here. When there was city employees, is a lot of lack of the communication never exists. I've been literally working close to 3 years. We had any, employee meeting, to kind of talk, to figure out what's going on. Like you on your own, like you just point, everybody point finger, but end of the day, we don't sit as a teamwork to kind of discuss the issue, to come out to one solution to figure it out to solve the issue. Never happened since I was city employed. And then those is gonna help you understand your employees, understand your employees' frustration, and then learn from one another, because every day we learn from one another. And then the way you can compromise and boost it up, because we already failed already, we all, because doesn't even, we can't point finger, school committee or Mesa May or whatever, because we're all part of it. We fell, we didn't do good. Then as of right now, we're not gonna focus on the past as right now, we're gonna take the failure from the success. And I hope you can count on us, all of us. You can ask us, we can do a meeting with you, kind of change ideas, try to work with your employees as a teamwork with a lot of communication, and then you can do this. I believe in you, I see your competency, and I wish you the best of luck. And then another thing I like to see it for this year report, I like to see it detailed definition I don't like you, like you said, spend on other. I don't want to say other. For example, just give you a quick example, $10,000, we buy a pen, everybody knows. And then if all the taxpayers as well can have access to your quarter report, whatever's going to help, if they go online and search, they don't need to come to me or ask. They can just go online and see how much money you get and then how much money you spend on what. It's not going to look like overspend. It doesn't. Nobody knows what's going on. Like, to be honest with you, I'm look so lost on this. Until today, I still not understand. Even the investigation things. It just does not look right. But, well, I know all this. You're going to picture that, and you're going to do better. And then I wanted you to be more transparency. You can't. You can ask to help. And then for the taxpayers as well, everyone can have access, like I said. If something like you can post online, for example, this month you get $10,000. Everybody knows you get $10,000. And then how much you spend those $10,000. Everybody knows how much on what you spend on the $1,000. That will help you end the year. And I'm totally more than support you with all your interview. And then, we don't need to miss me here because, you're the one's going to do the job here. But you did very well, and thank you again. I appreciate it, and good luck. We're here for you. Together we can. For a new direction, we can do this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did you just say together we can?
Together we can.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks, Councilor. Councilor Texera, and then we'll go the second round from a couple of councilors. But I just want to, Councilor, before you go, we're here to discuss the appointment of the auditor. What is she going to do from this point forward? She wasn't the auditor during the fiscal year 23 that we are now discussing. But I also want us to stay focused. We do have the city solicitor who will come later on to discuss the audit a little bit, but we cannot be jumping from point to point, causing us to go into areas that we're not prepared to discuss yet. I just want to make sure that we keep that in mind so that it's not, we're not jumping all over the place and kind of mixing things up. Today, is she a good auditor candidate or not? That's what we're here to discuss. Go ahead, Councilor Texera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Irene, to be here before us. I'm here to support you. I've been working with you for the past 9 months as the chair of the Accounts Committee, and every time I called you, you asked my question. And you are the right candidate. The resume is right here in front of me. The paper resume, it will be fine, but this is the resume right here for being transparent. And every time I ask you a question, like I said, you're right there to answer. So I'm going to support you. You're here for an appointment. You're not here to discuss what goes on in the school. That we can file a resolve to bring you when you become the audit. And if anybody who wants to ask any question, they'll be free to ask. And I'm here to support you. Thank you, and wish you nothing but the best for our city. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. I think that's a great idea. I have quarterly reports just to keep us abreast of what's going on. I believe Councilor Durancourt and then Thompson.
Yeah, thank you. Like I stated before, at least I'll speak for myself, right? As an elected official, I was put up here by the people, and I have a solemn obligation to work for the people. One thing that I do, which I have always done, meet with people, listening to people, take people's questions, whereby they do not have the ability or at least access to ask head department questions, if not have a meeting with you. And like I said earlier, the difference between the private sector and the public sector is huge. What happened in Brockton recently, you in your position, and of course, even though some of us acknowledge that you are not there, but you've been in that office. You've been the assistant auditor. I'm assuming you've been having access to information whereby the average person does not. That's important. But the problem is that, though, just because some of us are unwilling to ask the questions does not mean all of us are unwilling to do so. And the question that I asked you tonight were honest, direct, and obviously you did an excellent job in terms of explaining yourself. And I think if somebody believes that it's not necessary to have a CPA in a department like an audit department for a city like this with the deficit that we just have, and I think this is troublesome. I mean, even though you never said that, but I think it's not easy to have a CPA. Okay, so I have people in my family who are certified public accountant. It's a very complex process, but I think it would be in the interest of the resident of Brockton and of course the taxpayer to have someone like that. That person doesn't have to be the auditor, but that person will be very useful in terms of the complexity of the information that you are dealing with. And of course, people may assume that. And one thing that the public may not know, we don't have staff here. None of us has any staff. We either rely on people or do the research on our own. And the beauty of this job is the fact that we have access to unlimited information, so at least for me, whereby you can reach out to people who are more informed, more educated, whereby they can put stuff together and you have the ability to process them. And that's my job. And as long as I am elected, as long as I have the ability to sit up here, that will not change. And like I said, I know you personally. Whenever I reach out to you, you always talk to me. We are not talking about personal relationship. We are talking about a city who just have a deficit of $18.25 million, whereby the taxpayer gonna have to deal with it. And at the end of the day, if someone feel offended and somewhat challenged by virtue of me asking questions, that's on them. But not now, not tomorrow, never, that someone can prevent me from asking the question that is necessary for the taxpayer. You are a taxpayer, so do I. All of us. So at the end of the day, we cannot and we should not continue doing the same thing over and over again and expect something different. That deficit happened because, according to this financial review, if not audit, there was a lack of competence. I didn't say that. I didn't write that. They wrote this. And by virtue of that, the question is, how do we fix that? And at the end of the day, it is upon all of us to making sure that something like this never happen again. And how do we do that? We have to take accountability. We have to ask the tough question. We gotta be able to do our due diligence to making sure that anybody who work for the city, whether or not you were hired yesterday, today, or you've been here for 50 years, you have an obligation to spend the taxpayer money accordingly. That's my job. As a policymaker, I don't have the ability to allocate money. But what I can do, I can look, I can review, I can ask, I can advise, and I can take it from there. Each of us can only speak for yourself. No one speaks for me up here. I speak for myself. But as an elected official, it is my job, it is my responsibility to work in collaboration with the resident. And like I said before, who may not have or do not have access to talk to you, because they would have to make an appointment and they would have to be there at a certain times. I don't have to do that. I can just pick up my phone and shoot you an email and request information. You, as a public employee, have an obligation to respond. And as long as I am elected, that will not change, whether it's you or any head department. In terms of your qualification, I think it is necessary for the people to know they are dealing with somebody who's qualified. Asking you what was the level of education in your office is a fair question. Asking you whether or not you have a CPA is a fair question. Asking you how long you've been doing this is a fair question. There is nothing that I ask that shouldn't be asked. None. So if someone feels somewhat offended or assuming that somebody will come down and challenge you, that's your responsibility. I am here to do a job, and I will do that as long as I am elected, and that will never change. Thank you.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I promise to be quick. I just want to state I appreciate your honesty tonight. You answered our questions to the best of your ability and honestly, and I do appreciate that. Quickly, I just want to raise a red flag regarding our transportation department, the school transportation department, and as I know, but I know we're going to bring you back in a resolve, but I just think this is super important, and I probably even can't wait for that. But if you could just please, as per our ordinance, says to print a state of that transportation account and the condition of its appropriations. If maybe you could get that to us sometime shortly, and as our ordinance allows, for you to make comment, you know, in your professional understanding and ability of what's going on with that account. So I'm just asking if you could share that with the council as soon as possible. Thank you, Madam Auditor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
A motion has been properly made and second to recommend this item favorably to the entire city council. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Best of luck in the position. And I think the idea of having quarterly reports from your office, I think would probably be a worthy item to have to the council to keep us abreast of what's going on in lieu of what happened a couple years, last year, and continues to happen. Thank you and best of luck.
Thank you.
Item 4, ordered in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council approve the expenditure of $31,889.50 from DPW Water Purchase of Services to West Law Group. Invited City Solicitor Megan Bridges, CFO Troy Clarkson.
Councilors, I did receive a call from the CFO asking us to postpone this item to our next FinCom.
Motion to postpone till the next FinCom meeting.
Second.
A motion has been properly made in second to postpone to the next FinCom meeting. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It carries. Number 5, sir.
Item 5, resolve, whereas the City Council will consider zoning changes for the area known as the Brockton Fairgrounds, and whereas this area constitutes 66 acres possibly with the mixed-use development on the property, and whereas fire safety is critical in areas where residential, commercial, or other development projects take place. Now therefore be it resolved to have Brockton Fire Chief Brian Nardelli and such staff as he deems appropriate be invited to a meeting of the council to discuss the fire safety issues related to a large development project and surrounding residential and commercial properties, including issues affecting fire operations. Invited Fire Chief Brian Nardelli and/or his designee.
Councilors, before we go on this particular thing, I'm going to state this again. We're here to discuss with the fire chief the fire safety concerns of the fairgrounds and the projects that might be coming forward. Nothing is in front of us, so let's not get into building A, building B, building C, because it makes absolutely no sense. So, Fire Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, councilors. So, real quickly, just to, when you look up what a fire chief is, my main responsibility is to find a way to protect life and reduce the possibility of conflagration. And that is right in what a fire chief is if you look it up through the Massachusetts Fire Service credentialing for fire chiefs. Back approximately a couple months ago now, I received a document about the potential upcoming zoning for the fairgrounds. When I looked it over, I was pretty critical of a lot of things. I was concerned the document wasn't really as concise as I would have liked to have seen, and I emailed out some of those concerns. I had the opportunity to meet with the property owner and the construction managers and their builders and get a better concept and, quite frankly, a much better idea of the direction they were going. The piece of paper really didn't do it justice when I looked at it. Is it still concerning? Are there still some things that I want to discuss? Absolutely. But I think tonight to look at, just like the chairman said, my concerns in regards to the fire safety stuff, I think the property owner, and especially the superintendent, the potential people who are buying the property, were very open to a lot of things I said. We also had another meeting after that. They were very open to a lot of my concerns, and they, quite frankly, were actually asking me more questions about what my concerns were in that regard. So there are a number of things. When I looked at the overall thing, I thought it was very broad. My concerns were, it's a mixed use. It's residential, it's commercial, it's industrial. Well, where? That's 66 acres of property. Where is this all going to go? I don't want an industrial piece of equipment or factory or whatever it is right next to a residential property. I don't think it's appropriate. It doesn't work. It's not going to work anywhere. That's why we have the zoning laws that came into effect in 1967 to make sure we don't have these problems. I think after speaking with those involved in the property and what they were looking at, their vagueness had more to do with what the property could be versus what the definitive mixed use is and how much of this and how much of that. And I completely understood. So I think tonight to talk about some of the things that are of great and some of the things that are still concerning and that the areas that I brought up to them. We have some of the best, we have some of the largest gallons per minute of water flowing through just on the other side of the fairgrounds. I know when you look at Thurber Ave, part of it is broken up and beat up and different things of that. There is a 30-inch ductile water main that flows underneath there. Why is that important? Well, if we're looking to put 12,000 units in a place and we're going to have industrial and we're going to have potential commercial, that is truly important to me as the fire chief. If you go back to the fire at the State House that was on that property, I was the deputy chief that night. That was before I made chief, and one of my first priorities was to make sure the embers were burning down so I didn't burn down Morse Ave and Winifred and all of those. My most important other aspect was to get a good water supply up there, and I knew it was easy because we've talked about this for years. We were able to get a water supply through a relay system from Thurber Avenue, and I had more water than I knew what to do with. So this not only for firefighting purposes will be phenomenal for that area, but if they're looking to do industrial and things like that, they'll have all the water they would need. Some of the concerns, and we see this in zoning, and I was speaking with the chairman of the zoning board tonight about this, we're seeing a lot of developments going in the city with what they plan for a road as a 50-foot swath. That meaning, by the time they put the sidewalks in, the greenery, you're looking at about 28 feet of actually paved road. Well, that's a problem because now we're putting cars on those roads with parking. They're looking at some parking situations with this as well. So does that create a problem moving fire apparatus? Absolutely it does. And I made that very clear to them. The first thing you think of, though, is the movement of fire apparatus. I also look at that as fire breaks. One of the biggest things when you look at their plan, which they're beautiful renderings and the buildings look great, is what's called podium construction. Podium construction is a lot of what you're seeing in the downtown area now, where the first floor is all steel. Steel girders, everything's steel. After that, they would go up with all wood. It's basically a forest in the sky. Completely allowable by the building code. Completely allowable by everything we do. But I think as your fire chief, I have to tell you that we need to widen that road to create a bigger fire break. Are they sprinkled on the inside? Absolutely they are. Do we have enough water to put the fire out? Absolutely we do. I think the important part about this, though, is if there is a car fire on the outside of the building, those sprinklers are not going to help that building, and they'll go right up the outside. The fire would go right up the outside of that building. We need space between it. Some of the things they talk about in this zoning overlay is the 10-foot spacing between any buildings. Well, that's a problem, especially if they're going to put industrial on top of residential or commercial underneath. It's also a concern of mine that those buildings are too safe. Is it allowed by the building code? Absolutely it is. But my belief is if we're going to develop this piece of property, we need to develop this piece of property that makes it the safest for our residents and future residents here in the city of Brockton. When I spoke to them, too, to go back to the water supply aspect, I made it very clear that it all has to be a looped system. So if they're going to take off of that main coming off of Thurber Avenue, we need 6- and 8-inch mains coming off of that, but it's got to be looped into Forest Avenue and got to be looped into Belmont Street. It just can't come into the property and dead end, because then you divert the entire process of why we're trying to accomplish this water supply system as it is. One of the things I think I'd be deeply concerned about is the call volume that's now going to go on in there, right? I have Engine Company 5 on the west side. We may have to look long-term at beefing up our fire protection in that area, especially with the building out and as you go down Belmont Street. So there could be costs down the road to the city where I would have to build out infrastructure for the fire service in the years to come. I think one of the things that's very important about all of this is I think my discussions with these folks were very productive in that they were very understanding of my concerns and really, I think, wanted to capture that and work with me as the fire chief of what those concerns would be and how we would get that water supply, how we would make sure that we had those man-made fire breaks by increasing the street sizes. How this layout is, I'm not sure how, and I really can't comment on that because I'm speaking to you tonight as your fire chief, not necessarily as a zoning individual. But I think there needs to be some restrictions as to, like I spoke earlier, and they were open to this. They understood exactly what I was talking about when I brought it to them. There needs to be some restrictions as to what is going to go next to what. We can't have industrial, I don't believe, next to residential. When I saw one of their other renderings that I had the opportunity to see when they came in that day, I was very impressed with how they put the residential on the outside, down towards Thurber Avenue, some beautiful townhouses, some bigger buildings. I think, though, again, I'll just reiterate my concerns. Wider streets, more than 10 feet between buildings, making sure we have a good looped water system, and the podium construction is my concern because of that. Are they building that in downtown Brockton? Yes, they are. But they're building it, and then there's a brick building right next to it that's not going to have that same fire spread potential as multiple podiums next to one another. So I think they answered a lot of my questions. They wanted to work with me, and they took everything I had to say in. But I think, again, and I think I've heard a lot of people say this, if we don't do this right the first time, we could have bigger problems down the road for such a large parcel of land. I believe, though, I think that these folks, I know they'd be willing to work with me on whatever we had talked about because they basically stated it that day. So I'd be more than happy to take any questions in regards to the fire aspect of it, fire, in life safety and protection, and reduction of conflagration hazard in that property, if anyone has any.
Councilor Powell, I believe that was yours. Would you like to?
I did. Colleagues, I asked Chief Nardelli if he would come in and briefly discuss his concerns with us. Eventually, I know this zoning will go through the ordinance committee, but then it will come back to the full committee, and I wanted to start a dialogue with him as to his concerns, because this is not your average zoning issue. This is complicated. It does have to be done right. There are a number of concerns that we need to factor into whatever we ordain for zoning, and so I think this initial meeting with him is very beneficial, and if any of you have additional questions, I hope you will ask them. And when we finally get that final iteration of whatever this zoning ordinance is going to look like, run it by the appropriate people, including the chief, for one final review before we go forward, because it's that important. Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
A motion has been properly made and second to recommend this item favorably. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It carries. Thank you,
Thank
Chief.
you.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Number 6, please.
Item 6, resolved, be it resolved by the Brockton City Council to invite City Solicitor Megan Bridges to appear before the Finance Committee to discuss the city-conducted audit and investigation for the FY23 School Department financial deficit. Invited City Solicitor Megan Bridges and/or designee.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor. Before we go into this item, I just wanted to make sure, again, that I remind everybody of what we had discussed a couple days ago and even earlier today. The solicitor is not the not the author of this audit, so we should limit our questions as related to the summary that she will give us, because there are still some legal and pending matters that might be prejudicial to the city as we move forward in a sense. So anything we do say, just like when you're watching TV and they read the Miranda and they basically say anything that you do and say will be used against you in a court of law, this could actually be used against us in the court of law. So, Madam Solicitor, you're on.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I am the author of this resolve. I just want to piggyback. You mentioned limited questions. I think there should be, honestly, no questions asked, because we're going to put the solicitor in a position where she's going to have to continually tell us that, it's probably not in the best interests of her to answer our questions relative to the audit. So if
I agree.
So I'll just ask the councilors, if you want to make a statement, please. Everybody has the right to speak, but if I think we'd be chasing our tail if we keep asking the city solicitor questions that she's just, it would not be in the best interest for her to answer in a public forum. Thank you.
Councilor.
So excellent. I think I should stand up for this. Let me just put it like this. Like, you are telling at least me that after a deficit of $18.25 million, that we shouldn't ask any question about this? I'm confused, though. So even as we speak, I mean, you said, this is what you just said, right? So as we speak, as elected official, right, we just have a report came out, I mean, whereby, I mean, I guess this is where the city of Brockton, the resident, will be able to understand, if not find out what has been going on. And you just acknowledge that no question should be asking. Am I misunderstanding what you are saying, or like?
Hold on. Let me. Okay. We don't want to go back and forth. I believe, as the chair of this committee, I am empowered by the chairship of the committee to basically state that we're going to sit here and listen to the summary report that's provided to us. You may speak, but you're not going to ask her questions to put her in position where she's going to have to answer to any of the counselors something that might become a deterrent or a problem to this body that's not actually even in the report itself. So as the chair, that's going to be my decision to do. And if any counselor has a problem with that, I think we have a grand total of 3 months left of my chairship. We can change that as we go along. So what I'm stating right now is that we're going to sit here, listen to the report. Any counselor is allowed to make a comment, but we cannot ask. She's not the author of the question of the audit. When the time comes and we want to bring the authors of the audit in front of us, then we can ask them the questions.
Yeah, but Mr.
Right
Chair,
now, we're not, Counselor.
No,
With all due respect, there's one chair in this committee, and that happens to be me.
but I have a statement.
Madam Solicitor, go ahead.
This is interesting. Okay.
Could I ask a point of information then? I'm not quite sure why we have her here then. We have an audit. I will admit I have not read every single page completely. What are we going to ask her that is not in the audit? In other words, I'm not quite sure we should ask her anything or ask her to present anything.
Counselor, I think one of the things that we wanted to do is to give the public that's watching us that haven't had an opportunity to read this, to have the solicitor give us the summary of the audit. Again, she's not the author of the audit. It makes absolutely no sense for me to say, well, who said this or who said that, who did this, who did that, when she's not the author of the audit. So she's going to give us a summation. We can basically make whatever comments we want to make, but as far as putting the solicitor on the spot where she might have to come back with some sort of an answer and putting this body in a pearl, as you normally would say, makes absolutely no sense.
And I guess I completely agree with you. This has a summary. If you look at it, it has a very, very comprehensive summary by major areas. So I'm not quite sure why we have her here when
a resolve was filed to bring her in, so we're going to listen to her.
All right. Well, thank you.
I'm not sure if I should stand or sit, so I'm going to stand. I think I'll start with just general comments addressing the body and the frustrations that, or the tensions that are clear. The council president asked me if I would provide a summary to the council, and at first I said I don't think that's a good idea because I don't think it's appropriate to take unreviewed questions from this seat in this role that I play when there is pending litigation against the city on the exact subject matter for which we're discussing. Executive session exists for that type of fulsome discussion, and I welcome follow-up questions by email, or I welcome an executive session where you can ask me questions, or I will bring the investigators. I was asked to come tonight and provide an overview for the public who may not have accessed or read the report. Maybe we're auditory learners and people are watching. I can appreciate the frustration, and I welcome any questions that you wish to send to me, and I will review them and happily talk to you if it's appropriate at the appropriate time. What I have right now, if community access would be so kind, is a short PowerPoint presentation over the report. I'm going to share the same comments I shared the other day at the mayor's press conference. And I would like everyone to know that the report is available online at the city's website, brockton.ma.us. In the news tab, it's the very first document. I can bring it up online if people would like to see how to navigate there. The presentation is fairly short, and as some of your colleagues mentioned, the report is very detailed and it is available for anyone who would like to see, with a very with a table of contents that provides a lot of depth and context to the topics. So Nystrom, Beckman, and Paris is the firm who conducted the investigation. The key players in the budget process are, of course, the superintendent, the BPS CFO, the Brockton School Committee, the city CFO, and the mayor. The FY23 budget deficit. So there are some words on the page that I'll read out loud. BPS spent $23.8 million more than the FY23 budgeted amounts for certain key spending categories. BPS was able to offset this total amount with funding sources, including additional grant revenue and reimbursement under the Circuit Breaker program, which provided additional financial assistance to the public school district to offset the cost of delivering high-cost special education services to students. In addition, BPS did not spend each line item as budgeted, leaving surpluses in some expenditure categories. Using these surplus funds, BPS offset the total amount it overspent, resulting in a final deficit of approximately $18 million. The origins of overspending in BPS finance are known in the areas of personnel, transportation, out-of-district tuition caused by closing the Huntington Day School, and contract services overspent by $1 million. There are certainly details of a very granular nature in the report, but these are the major areas of overspending. As indicated in the report, the systemic failures and the root causes of the budget deficit, the superintendent, the school committee, the city CFO, and the mayor blindly trusted the school CFO. The superintendent failed to prepare and administer the FY23 budget within the limits of the city council's appropriation. The school committee was uninformed, unengaged, and failed to exercise sound oversight. The city CFO failed to exercise oversight over the budget and spending as required by law. The mayor failed to intervene, and there was a deep divide between the city and the school department. Before I get to the recommendations, which I'm hopeful folks have read because they are quite digestible, I did just want to share that Baker Tilly is a forensic financial firm that in the commissioning of the report, the investigative team, who are lawyers, not accountants, and not forensic financial analysts, said to the city, you know, we really should bring on an audit firm to confirm information that was provided by BPS and to make sure that we all understand what the actual number was. So Baker Tilly was brought on and engaged to obtain and analyze the information available pertaining to revenue from July 20 to April 24. July 2020 to April 24, for the purpose of looking for inconsistencies. Their complete report is provided as an attachment to the actual investigation, and it provides exactly what they did and what they found. And in general, they found that this was an isolated incident. So I think that's important to note. They did not find patterns. That's why there was an expansive amount of time from the look-back period. So let's go back to the recommendations. The school finance department should build its budget on actual expense information from prior years. Certainly, this makes sense to everyone, but using approximations or projections is part of the problem. And this was detailed in a DESI 2020 report also. The school finance department's budget must be more detailed and transparent. The school department should maintain a human resources and personnel system that accurately tracks employees by location, position, and funding source. A big part of the report was how hiring occurred at BPS and what mechanisms were in place to make sure that the proper channels were followed. And sometimes they were circumvented. The school finance department must track spending relative to the budget approved by both the school committee and the city council. Munis should match the budget categories. You heard a lot about that from Irene. The school department should share key data throughout the fiscal year. The members should undergo annual budget training. The school committee must, as required by law, approve their vendor and payroll warrants. I know that was a lot of the discussion with Irene, but that is, I could certainly talk to you more offline about that, but the department really needs to manage those vendor payments and the payroll warrants themselves, and then auditing's job is just what it says, it's to audit. The school department should be led by a superintendent with a financial background and prior experience managing a large-scale organization. BPS is approximately half of the city's budget, making it a $250 million organization. The school and city finance departments should be consolidated. The school department and city must bridge the artificial divide between the two systems and work collaboratively on school finances. The chair of the school committee should be someone other than the mayor with reporting obligations to the mayor. I understand that this is part of our charter, but the recommendation was left as it was suggested. The city should engage a CPA firm to conduct a periodic review of the school department processes, protocols, and internal controls. The city should appoint an ombudsman to allow city employees, school department employees, and members of the public to anonymously report issues affecting the financial and organizational health of the city. Outside consultants should reassess whether BPS should maintain an in-house transportation department. That, in general, is the report. There are lots of details contained within the report. And although I'm doing it out of order, I'll read the statement I read the other day, which I think really captures what we're here for. It has been an honor and a pleasure to facilitate this act of government transparency. The commissioning of this external independent investigation occurred to determine what happened, why did it happen, and how Brockton can ensure that it does not happen again. Nydstrom, Beckman, and Paris reviewed and analyzed millions of pages of information and extensive financial data. To assist, NBP engaged the national forensic accounting firm, Baker Tilly, to conduct an analysis of munis and budget information. At their core, the areas of overspending were caused by structural failures, lack of sound budgeting and financial analysis, a failure to track spending relative to the budget, and leadership miscues throughout the school department and the city. As the report states, at every level of leadership, Massachusetts law imposes duties and responsibilities on certain individuals to develop a balanced budget and monitor spending. Accordingly, I forwarded a copy of the report to the Public Corruption Division of the Attorney General and to the Office of the Inspector General. I think the report speaks for itself. In its factual findings and conclusions, it's thorough and detailed, it's external and unbiased, it's independent, and the facts uncovered are self-supporting in its conclusions. And just as a final statement, for anyone who may be curious, while I was charged with overseeing the investigation truly was independent. I did not direct the findings. I was not involved in the recommendations. I was not involved in the drafting. I found a firm, we agreed on a scope of work, and I didn't know who they were interviewing, when they were interviewing them, in what order, where the interviews occurred, what the questions were. That the report was truly external and independent, with the exception that there needed to be an internal manager of the process. That was the role that I proudly filled, and I think the report is an excellent example of transparency. So that is really the conclusion of what I have to say about the report, other than I would invite you all to both the city's website, where I said you could find it, and the school's website, where there are two reports. A report from RSM, a financial organization, as well as Open Architects, who the city has been working with for quite a while since the deficit exploded. Thank you.
Comments? Anything that anyone wanted to share other than what we had discussed? And I think the solicitor kind of hit it right on the nail, in the sense that there are still legal matters pending.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion has been properly made in second. All those in favor of recommending it favorably? Anyone opposed? It carries. Thank you, Madam Solicitor.
Thank you.
And again, as she said, those of us that have any questions or concerns, please reach out to her. And if we need to, then we will set up some sort of an executive meeting, in the sense to have, more details, because again, the city has been sued way too many times, and I don't think we want to fumigate that, a little further with new additional lawsuits that are based on information that we discuss here. So thank you much.
Thank you.
Councilor Azak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is an exciting time of year, one of my favorite times of the year. We have two great festivals happening this week. First, it's the Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church, located 457 Oak Street, is having their annual festival. So hopefully everybody will be able to make it. It starts this Thursday, September 19th, and goes right through to Sunday, September 22nd. They have live music, dancing, and great food, as always. So hopefully everybody can make it to support our Greek community in Brockton. And this week, we're sharing, the Lebanese Festival is sharing the same weekend as the Greek Festival. And so you'll be able to stop by at St. Teresa's Church, located at 343 North Main Street here in Brockton, to celebrate with the Lebanese community, who also have great music, dancing, and amazing food. So hopefully we'll get to see everybody there this weekend. The Lebanese Festival starts on Friday, a day after the Greek festival, and goes on till Sunday the 22nd.
Free drinks for everybody, right?
Sure, you're buying.
Okay. Councilor Durancourt.
Yeah, thank you.
You don't have to stand, you can sit.
No, I understand I have to stand. Like recently, the Trump administration, well, let me just put it to you, like the Trump campaign, and especially J.D. Vance, had made some very, very harshful comment about the Haitian community, whereby, and although the comment was made prior to the debate, but in the night of the debate, Trump stated that the Haitian people are eating dogs, cats, and all of that. And as a proud Haitian person, especially as somebody who was born in a place that defined democracy, and I think that I have a moral obligation to speak on that. The basic foundation of this country, like I stated before many times, is based on immigrants. Whether you come from 200 years ago, whether you come from somewhere yesterday. No one, unless you are a Native American, can claim that this piece of land belongs to you. It is so disgraceful to see the sadness within the Haitian community, that level of disrespect. And although the statement was made by somebody who's running for president, one thing that I do know is that even locally we may have people who have the same belief system but do not have the gut to say it, and trying to exclude, marginalize, and disrespect a community that has been nothing more than being useful, respectful, and hardworking people. So for me, it is hot. How do I put this? I just don't want to be emotional, but I'll do my best. That level of disrespect should not exist in America. The basic foundation of America is that each of us come from somewhere, somehow. I don't care who you are or how long you've been here. Whether you are Irish, Italian, Greek, Haitian, Cape Verdean, whomever you might be, you come from somewhere. And to pick a community solely for political reason, it goes to show that level of disrespect. And as somebody who's able to live in this community, I think that I have a solemn obligation to speak on behalf of the Haitian people, whether they are in Massachusetts or anywhere in the nation. And I guess the problem that we have in America is that we have a lack of knowledge, and if not, a short memory. And if you recall, when the former president was running before, he called Haiti a shithole country. But the mistake that he made was the fact that he does not understand that the history. Part of the reason why Haiti is like that is because the international has been deeply involved in the outcome of this country. Not just now, since the beginning, since the day of our independence. And in terms of history, I should say, during World War I, Haiti was one of the first nations who gave America $1 million to fight in that war. But these are the things that we don't teach our kids. Because had Trump learned that from school, he would never have made such stupid comments. And I guess to call a group of people all of that and saying that people have to be careful of their dogs and cats because the Haitian people are in town, I don't know how low you can go. And although I am outraged and frustrated, but that level of engagement from this community, I haven't seen it. And although the Haitian community may be facing this today, but as history will reveal it, there was a moment in time the Irish community here in Boston were not welcome certain places. It's a fact. Whereby if you were Irish, you couldn't get a job by virtue of you solely being that. And it's funny to hear people are saying that, well, these people need to learn how to speak English. But let me just say it to you like this. Unless you come from a place that speaks that language, you have to learn it. And not able to speak English does not mean you are either stupid, incompetent, or unqualified. Having the ability to speak not just English, but any language is an opportunity that you have to communicate. And for me, I guess, we as people, I don't care whether you are Republican, Democrat, Independent, we have a solemn obligation in this country to determine whether or not we want to go that route or we want to set a system whereby we have people in power that speak hope, respect, as opposed to putting people down. Because for me, it cannot get worse than that. You cannot go lower than that. And then although the governor of Ohio, and even the mayor of that city, the local official, saying that there is no proof in that kind of stupidity, calling them to, if not retract, get rid of that sentence or statement, they are still using it. Solely because of a group of people which they claim to be illegal, who are not illegal here. And I will even go further to say that, unless you are a Native American, all of us are undocumented here. Because there was a moment in time when we come from England coming here in the spirit of freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. So we come to that piece of land whereby we will find a place to be at ease. And as we speak, you are disrespecting, devaluating a group of people who have nothing to do with your level of stupidity. And the problem that we have in this country, we are teaching a generation of young people how to hate certain group of people. Today might be the Haitian community who are, if not on television, for stupid things. But the last time I checked, in terms of the level of migrants in this country, we are not even close to number 200 in terms of numbers. But no one have the courage to denounce it. And I would say this, as a young black man, born and raised in Haiti, I come from a land of history. I come from a land that defined democracy. What's unique about the Haitian Revolution is that without that, we wouldn't have the Louisiana plantation. It was part of the Haitian Revolution whereby we kicked the French out. And America was able to purchase that land. That's history. We gotta be able to teach that. And of course, we have our Haitian community in this city. We are buying houses, sending our kids to school, paying bills, and doing what we're supposed to do like every group. Why are you treating us like this? And this has nothing to do with either you are Republican or Democrat. This is pure stupidity, bigotry, and a lack of respect for people. And like I said before, I am outraged, frustrating to know that in 2024, we can have somebody or a group of people running to lead this country can say on live television that the Haitian people are eating dogs, are eating cats. Where I'm from, we don't do stuff like that. Where I'm from, we open doors for people. If you are in need, we help you. The level of political instability in Haiti has been caused by the U.S. government. It's not me saying it. So many times they have sent troops in Haiti in the spirit of helping them. According to the United Nations, not even one of them has been successful. And to the point, even as we speak, they have the Kenyan going down there in collaboration with a movement to help because the United Nations refused to let the U.S. government send Marines there by virtue of their failures. They don't talk about this in here. But people need to know what's going on there. You would do the same thing if your kids are being killed, if your wife have been raped, and all of that. You will go somewhere. And for those of you who may not know about the situation down there, we don't make guns in Haiti. Most of the guns that are being used, if not brand new guns, they come from here. And the question that you gotta ask, you will see a young person who cannot eat, doesn't have his sandals, and carry a weapon that costs $4,000. The question is, who is giving that gun to that person? Someone is doing it. And all of these things has been tracked down from Miami. And how dare you to say that my people are eating dogs? My people are eating cats on live television. And even though the Republican governor of Hawaii stated that, that's not true. The mayor on television, the city council, even some of the people that made the comment by virtue of not knowing, which I acknowledge because they accept the fact that it was a mistake. And these people are still saying it. And I read somewhere that the KKK are passing flyers saying that they are coming for them. But one thing that I know about my people, we might be down now, but we're not going to be down forever. That's a fact. We've done it before, and we will do it again. And tonight, in the spirit of community, in the spirit of togetherness, as people, as human beings, I urge this council to denounce this statement. I urge every single one of you who lives in this community to have the gut to say no to racism, to say no to bigotry, to say no to discrimination. Because you know why? Like I said at the beginning of this, today might be the Haitian people. but who don't know who's next. And at this level, even the person who made the statement, his wife came in this country undocumented. His own wife came here undocumented. That level of stupidity. And again, I said that, to my Republican brothers and sisters, this has nothing to do with that. Reagan will never make such stupid comment. George W. Bush, none of these people. This is a whole different ballgame in terms of how people speak about people. And how do you expect someone like that to lead? In our view as elected official, whether somebody voted for us or not, we have an obligation to represent them. Our job is to represent everyone, not to push aside, not to make feel bad, not to exclude it, but to represent them to the best of our ability. And as we speak, my community is dying within. People are scared of leaving the house. They're feeling ashamed. How could you possibly, in 2024, living in America, feeling ashamed of leaving your house because you don't know what someone is thinking of you? That's disgraceful. And tonight, with all due respect, I hope that you will have the courage to join me in this fight, denouncing that level of bigotry, that level of disrespect, and join me in support of the Haitian community who has been suffering for so long. And I like to joke about it sometimes. At my age, I'm 34. Since I was born, Haiti does not know stability. And those of you who are older than me, you probably saw better than I do. We have nothing to do with this. Nothing. Even our election has been decided way before people get elected. And at the end of the day, we are not that far from Miami. Why so many things has been going there? We guess we are cursed because as the first black nation independent, how dare you to do that? How dare you to take your destiny at hand? How dare you to define democracy? We are still paying for that. And for those of you who may not know, we pay about $25 billion in order for both the US and Canada and for us to recognize our independence. Even though our people fought with their blood to give it to us. What's unique about the Haitian Revolution is that when we got our independence, everyone on that piece of land was free. And it took America more than 200 years to abolish slavery. And I guess we've been cursed. To end this, I would be remiss not to say that I am dying within. Because as somebody who has been nothing, play by the rules, respect the game, do what I'm supposed to do as every community here, it is shameful. It is shameful. Because one thing that I know about my people is that when we come here, we work here, we pay bill here, we send our kids to school, we play by the game. Every community has something going on. Every family, every group of people has somebody who may not be there 100% in terms of following the rules. This is not unique to my community. But to go to the point saying that they are killing geese, eating dogs, killing cats, and people have to be in the lookout for the Haitian people because they are in town. How low can you go? With that being said, I will leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. There is no place in this country for that kind of discourse. And if you're interested, I'll co-sign a letter with you condemning this kind of behavior.
Thank you.
And I think it's a shame that in 2024 we're having this kind of conversation in this country. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilors, I have something a little closer to home that I need to talk about tonight. I have served with many of you for the last 9 years. I'm in my 23rd year of elected office in this city, 10 years on the school committee, 4 years as mayor, and now in my 9th year here. We received a report about overspending in the school department. We had some comments by the city solicitor tonight about it. The report itself was highly critical of the mayor. I accept that. It was highly critical of the chief financial officer. I accept that. It was highly critical of the school committee, mentioning that they didn't even follow their own policies and that, quote, during fiscal year 23, the school committee never received any financial reports broken down at the level at which the budget was passed or projections on the district's administration's expectations of what costs remain to be incurred. In short, the school committee completely abdicated its oversight responsibilities. Apparently, there are some people on the school committee who cannot accept criticism. They apparently are so consumed with their own self-importance, they're so filled with hubris, and they're so angry that the mayor commissioned this audit and report that on the Wednesday evening, their Tuesday meeting has been postponed because, as some of you know, I complained about an open meeting law violation. On Wednesday evening, certain members of the school committee apparently want to go into executive session to talk about the mental health, character, and personal reputation of the mayor. If you're going to sit in judgment of another human being on a committee on which you serve, you'd better be sure your plate is clean. You'd better be sure that your conduct and your performance and the challenges that you were supposed to meet in your position were all met. And I think it is insulting to the office of mayor. I think it's insulting to Mayor Sullivan to have school committee members think that they should go into executive session and conduct an inquisition as to what did he know, when did he know it, and what did he do about it, particularly given all of the provisions of this report. So I'm asking all of you, Councilor Azrak, Derenoncourt, Minicello, Lally, the chairman, Councilor Nicastro, Thompson, Texera, Tavares, and Griffin, we need to change the trajectory of politics in this city because of what this report has done. You know what the first priority in this report should be? And the chairman and I had quite a discussion about it. The very first priority that should emanate from this report is what do we do for 14,000 students? It's not whether we improve the auditor's office or we change our budgeting strategy. It's what do we do for 14,000 students, because next year is going to be just as challenging, if not more challenging, than this year. And will be upon budget time probably in February or March. So if the school committee wants to be consumed with going after the mayor, and they want to be engaged in talking about his mental health, character, and personal reputation, I guess we're going to have to pick up the slack. And I'm just asking all of you in your respective spheres of influence, the people you know, the community members that you're friendly with, the residents that you know, let's change the trajectory of politics in this city. Let's focus on what's really important. Let's focus on those 14,000 kids. The next priority, as far as I'm concerned, is working with Superintendent Tahiliani. I think she is doing an exemplary job. I think she's more than capable of forming an administration that will reflect the priorities that we need for students in this city. I think she's more than capable of putting together budgets and spending plans and holding people accountable. I am more than impressed with the high school principal. I think Kevin is doing an exceptional job. So I guess it's up to us. It might be an assignment that we didn't sign up for because we're not elected to be school leaders, but we are community leaders. And as the chairman and I talked about today, we can never lose sight of those 14,000 people who don't need politics, don't vote. Some of them may if they're seniors. They depend upon us to guide the way toward a successful school system. That's not being done. When I see school committee members who want to do this to the mayor of the city of Brockton, to sit him in a room and talk about him and his personal reputation and character when this report is replete with what the school committee didn't do. I find that offensive, and I think, again, we need to do something about it. So I'm asking for your help. I'm asking for your input. If there are issues that need to be brought before this council to try to effectuate a change, let's do it. Because it's the 14, it's not votes, it's not whether we're successful ourselves. Public service only works if you believe that the people you serve and the issues are more important than yourself. It doesn't work when you think that you are the most important person and you deserve power and authority. So let's show this community that we're up to the task. We'll focus on those 14,000 kids, and we will make sure that next fiscal year, as well as this year, we'll be well positioned to serve their needs. I think the infrastructure is there with the school leaders we have. I do think school governance needs to be changed. Maybe we should have an appointed Board of Education, the way the state does. And we appoint people who are CPAs, and we appoint people who have prior educational experience, and we pick professional people who will focus on the important issues that face the school system. But to the extent that you educate your children and you provide safe learning environments and safe neighborhoods, that determines your quality of life. And I thank you at this late hour for considering these remarks. But when I learned that we were going to have people sit in judgment of the mayor, whether you like him or not, that is just beyond anything that I can accept based on my experience in Brockton politics. It was never like this. It was just never like this, and it shouldn't be like this. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you have anything to add because you and I spoke at length, but thank you very much for the recognition.
Thank you, Councilor. It's not 14,000, it's 15,000, almost 16,000. So the numbers are up there. And I honestly believe that that is the most important thing. It's water under the bridge in some instances. We can unring the bell, but it's up to us to pick up the pieces and move forward. We can't sit here and digress and continue to have these discussions day in and day out and not being, progressive in leading this system forward so we don't run into the issues that we're running. Councilor Teixeira, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm here to announce that we're going to have the council meeting on the 18th on Wednesday, 6 p.m., and it's open to the public and to all my colleagues. It'll be Wednesday, the 18th at 6 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Minicello.
I agree with both of my colleagues with a lot of what they said. With respect to Councilor Farwell, I've always said that when you put the students' needs first, that's what we all need to do. And that's when good things happen for education and good things happen for our students. It seems like some of the adults are not putting the students first and putting their own egos first. So, Councilor Farwell, what I can do, I will do with you on that. With regard to what Councilor Darencourt said, I watched that debate and I was equally outraged. I thought it was the most ignorant, stupid, insulting comment. I was actually shocked when they were discussing that nonsense. And I'll just say this to Councilor Darencourt. I can understand his outrage and his passion because it was just insane, the comments that were being made. And, with regard to the Haitian people and the Haitian community, I've had the privilege of having many Haitian individuals here in Brockton as friends, as clients. I find the Haitian people to be one of the most family-oriented group of people in this community, very religious, very respectful, teach their children to be extremely respectful, hardworking, education is huge in the Haitian community, always wanting to better themselves, always wanting to go after the American dream, opening businesses, professionals. So that's my impression of the Haitian people, especially the Haitian people of Brockton. So, I share your outrage, and, I was embarrassed, quite frankly, with the comments. That's all I'll say. And my friend, I'm sorry that you were so insulted, and I'm sorry that the Haitian people were insulted. It was so ignorant. It was just dumbfounded. I was dumbfounded. I was shocked. But again, the Haitian people in this community are wonderful people, hardworking people, some of the nicest people, and as generous as they come. So that's my take on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Tavares.
Well, just to close, actually, I feel my colleague, Councilor Winter, and then Darren Cortes as well, for both sides. I think we are human, doesn't matter where we come from. We all has a feeling, and then we hurt. And then we should not mistreat like one another or say things because we all offended. I think we should respect it. Like I said, we are human, we all do mistake, and then we are unique. I think we should stick with the human right and pray for other people. I believe it. They don't know exactly what they're talking about, or they don't know what they're doing. We should not take everything as a personal. Don't think we should pray for them. And that's all I can say about I can feel the pain. And then I think we should respect Mr. Mayor. I kind of hear, I heard that too, because he's in charge. And then he's been appointed by the public. And he's been appointed by the taxpayer. And we should not point finger for one another. I think we should say we are in this together for a better future. Because past is past. We should not focus on the past. No, we should feel blessed, and we find, I believe, the good candidate, which everybody already sees. She's more than qualified as well. And if we work together, we can do better. Not focus on negative stuff, or not focus on the hate, or not focus on the think we're better than other or whatever country, because we are human. We came from God, and God is just one, I believe. Thank you so much, and then God bless America, that's all we need to pray, that's all. And thank you, Mr. President.
Stupidity has its place.
Well,
that's basically all we need to
sad.
know that, it's interesting how, there's a fellow a few years ago by the name of Jeffrey Dahmer. He was munching on some people, but no one went out and said Americans are eating people. So that actually should, some of the folks that might be watching us or even thinking of that shouldn't generalize one incident or what other issue in the name of the people. Because from what I know, I'm an American and I never ate anybody, and I know that the rest of us haven't done that either, but is it fair to say that Americans have eaten people? Yes, they have, but we don't go around saying that, and we should not use other people, in a way, demeaning other people to make a point for ourselves. That's what we need to keep in mind. And again, I thank you for being here tonight. I know it's getting a little late. I appreciate all you guys and all the efforts that you put in. Let's go out and have a drink or two on Councilor's Azak's tab on Friday.
Which one, the Greek festival or the Lebanese festival?
Lebanese.
I have no pull at the Greek one, sorry. So no Uza.
Well, we'll do both. We'll just charge it to your tab.
All right, you just have to see me there, though.
Okay.
I might go to Ireland this weekend.
Yeah, good excuse. Councilors, if you have no further business, anything else that you want to discuss? Mr. Clerk, we're good?
We're all set.
Having no further business for the people of Brockton, this meeting is adjourned.